All right. Well, it looks like people are hopping on, and I did get a couple of emails here from people who are running a little bit late, but they should be joining us here in a few minutes. It is noon, though, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome you all. I'm Heidi Garvin from Grow, Nebraska, and part of my job, one of my favorite parts, is that I get to facilitate trainings like these. So we have Joanne and Brant today, and they are going to be talking to us about the Value Added Producer Grant. So Joanne and Brant, I will let you take it away.
Thanks, Heidi. First of all, we really appreciate you putting this together for us. This is a great way for us to reach some of our customers and some of the people that we want to help and assist with these types of programs. So you can go to the next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the purpose of the Value Added Producer Grant. And the grant actually started back in 2002 in the very first Farm Bill. We had some people instrumental in Nebraska that actually helped get the Value Added Producer Grant put into place. But the grant's purpose is really to help farmers and producers who are growing an alternative crop besides our traditional row crops or raising animals, to provide a way for them to have additional help and assistance in going out and marketing that value-added product. The first, when USDA started the Value-Added Producer Grant, they went out and they talked to people, and everyone said, well, we know how to grow the products, we just don't know how to market it. So what they came up with is this grant program to actually help people market the program. In the last 15 years, the program has grown a lot, and the uses of funds of what we can use the funds for has also really grown. One of the things that's unique about this program is actually funds that come directly to you as a farmer or producer or a person who is raising a value-added product, making a value-added product. The funds come to you to do what you want to do with your product or with your business. Typically, we as government programs, when we support a program like this or when we have these kind of programs, we give fund dollars to a group like Grow or to Center for Rural Affairs, and they put together programs to help you, but this is one of the only programs we have where the funds come directly to you. So you get to tell us how you want to use these funds and what you want to use the funds for. So the grant also is unique in that it has two different ways that programs that you can apply for under the grant. If you're just starting in the business and you want to do a value-added feasibility study to look at what the feasibility study of the project is, then that's one thing that you can apply for. So planning dollars, we call that. And then the other one is if you already have a business going and you want to apply for working capital dollars, then you can also use the funds to help you with those working capital expenses. And we'll talk more about that as we go through. So, okay, next slide.
Now it's my turn to talk a little bit. So on this slide, you see kind of a program overview for the last 3 funding cycles we've had. When the most recent Farm Bill came out, they allocated additional funds to the program. And so the program itself has been building increasing funding dollars each year since 2014. And the projects themselves have also been increasing. In 2015, was one of the larger increases we had seen in the program in probably 4 or 5 years prior to. And that year kind of was an eye-opening situation for us, is where we saw almost any application that was submitted to national office was funded. It was staggering. It was out of the projects that were funded, there was only like 70 projects nationwide that wasn't funded, which is incredible because in the past it might have been 1 out of 4 that was funded. And then the last funding cycle, which was 2016, there's an increase again, but there was a lot more, you could say, subscription to the program. So there's more projects funded, there's a lot more applications, but it also allowed us within the state to work with potential applicants and kind of developing their application and allowing those that actually applied within the state a pretty good chance of getting funded. We had to kind of go through the numbers, or just basic numbers. In 2014, I think we only had 2 projects funded in the state. In 2015, we were a little better, but it still wasn't a lot. I think it was 7 maybe. And then in 2016, when we were really working with applicants, we had 17 funded. We had 19 applications in 2016, and 17 of them were funded. So with the assistance that we helped with our applicants, we were very successful in making sure that they delivered a quality application for the funding.
The Bluetooth device is ready to pair.
Hang on, we're going to make sure everybody's muted.
So as you can see, in 2017 to 2018, the current funding cycle, right now there's at least $18 million that are going to be in the program. Because we're kind of staggering 2 fiscal years as far as funding, there could be possibly more. We won't really know that until we get actually past the application cycle to know the exact amount. But applications for this year will be due on January 31st. And so Joanne kind of touched on it a little bit before. For planning grants, the maximum grant amount is $75,000. And for working capital grants, the maximum amount is $250,000. For working capital, is kind of a unique set for the program. There's 2 different application types within that. So if you're less than $50,000, we call that a simplified application, and we don't require a feasibility study or a business plan. But if you go above $50,000, that's when we need those feasibility and business plans. And that's also what the planning grant can be utilized for, to allow the applicant to develop that business or the business plan feasibility study for the working capital application. The grants themselves do require a 1-to-1 match. So for every grant dollar that you request, you have to match it with $1. And there's many different ways you can utilize match. So cash, of course, is one type of match. In-kind contributions can be the commodity itself, or whatever product that you're growing or raising can be a source of in-kind contribution, or your own time and effort into the project as well. Go on the next slide. One of the main things for the program itself is the applicants must be ag producers. So to be eligible, you have to be basically growing or raising the commodity, ag commodity that is going to be utilized for the value-added product. Doesn't mean you have to grow every little bit and piece of it, such as if you're doing salsa or something like that. You could just be doing the tomatoes, but you have to be producing a major portion of the project itself. Go on to the next slide. So the program, there are 4 different type of applicants. For the majority of applicants that we have are independent producers. That would be just your basic producer, farmer, mom and pop type of operation. And it can be a business or just individuals. The ag producer group is a nonprofit type setup. So we see that might be a farmer's market, or a support groups of ag producers, maybe like the Wine and Grape Growers Association, those types of things. And then a farmer or rancher cooperatives and majority controlled producer-based businesses. Go on to the next slide. So to be eligible, the project, you must commit at least 50% of that raw commodity that's going to be used to produce the end product. And we look at each project with different value-added methodologies. Change in physical state, that would be mainly if you're raising cattle and you are going to sell steaks or something along those lines. That would be an example of a change in physical state produced in a manner that enhances the value. That would be organic, grass-fed beef, or free-range type chicken. Physical segregation, we don't see that one a lot, but it's more along the lines of GMO versus non-GMO. Farm or ranch-based renewable energy, that would be if you're doing biodigesters or methane type production, more from a electrical or standpoint. We don't, again, that's another one we don't see a lot. And then one of the more often one that we see is a locally produced agricultural food product, which is something that is raised and sold within 400 square miles. So that's kind of just a brief overview of the program. We thought we'd kind of change from the more boring regulation type items to more of the things that we have done and kind of give you examples so maybe you can get your mind thinking, and then we can go through some questions later on. So we have a few slides here of just some past projects that we've done or applicants that we've had.
And before Brent starts telling you about Robinette, I just want you to know that we want you to know what those different regulations are, that how you can apply, but we're here to help you. So if you have a product, please don't go worrying about, oh, how do I apply for this, and am I an independent producer or am I a producer group? Call us up because we will walk you through those steps and we can help you identify how you should apply for the grant. So that's why we're here. That's what our we really want to do. We want to get as much of these dollars into Nebraska as possible to help our businesses. So
Robinette Farms was awarded twice. They were awarded once in fiscal year 2011 and again in 2016. Both of them were working capital grants, and mainly what their first grant was used for was to meet their community's growing need to have those locally agricultural food products or the produce. And the aim was to increase the local sales through wholesale food businesses and farmers markets, and also to help execute a retail marketing plan. 2016 was kind of an expansion into a different product line for them. As you can see, they looked to do microgreens, some broiler chickens, and eggs, as you can see. And that's just kind of, that's the products that they were working with, but that doesn't really kind of get into what they were doing with the project. So their focus was a redesign of their website, which was going to allow them better online and social media presence. And then they were also going to develop new marketing materials to go along with that online and also print advertising, so they can, again, take their products to a broader audience than just at farmers markets and word of mouth and those type of things. And then through all that, they're going to implement a marketing strategy through social media, email, and through phone and other type of engagement methods. And the purpose of it was to basically increase not only the farmers market presence, but also to increase CSAs and their wholesale partners. Mainly what they're looking at doing through the whole project was to increase their customer base and also increase their revenues. Next slide. Oh, one other thing, and this is kind of common with a lot of our projects, is part of their VAPG grant was also used to help pay for some of their staff, more or less, to help pay for their labor costs as far as getting to farmers markets and those types of things. So the next one that you see is Prairie Pride Poultry. I'll let Joanne kind of talk a little bit about Prairie Pride.
Prairie Pride applied in FY14. So this is a independent producer by himself. He, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, he is a veteran. He came back and decided he wanted to raise chickens to sell eggs, was what he started with. So he came to us, and his first thing that he really wanted to do was to hit local farmer markets. So he applied for funds, and I will tell you, he only applied for $5,000, so a very minimal amount. And he used those funds to help him pay for his fees to get into farmers markets. He used it to have some marketing materials printed for him, including like the tent that he uses for the farmers market. And these are the funds that helped him launch that business and get into these farmers markets. So he was able to, I forget how many chickens he has, but he is now expanding his business. He's looking at selling, as you can see from the right-hand side, he's selling pasture-raised pork, he's selling eggs, he has some bacon he's selling and ham steaks. And so he's really has expanded his business from when he started in FY14. So again, it doesn't have, people don't have to think that you have to apply for $75,000 if that's not what you need. If you need a smaller amount, the grant is still open for those activities as well. Did I miss anything about what he's done?
No, he also basically what he would say is you can do a whole breakfast when you meet with him. You can get the bacon, you can get the eggs, you can get everything that you possibly need to make an omelet when you go visit his stand. He started with eggs and went to broiler chickens and then went into the pork and also started growing some produce. But after he received the grant, he was in York on just a small little acre pasture and then moved into a much larger location outside of Grand Island.
And of course, the value-added producer grant can't pay for those expenses, but it can help pay for the marketing of his product. So I think if you call Dan, he would tell you that the help that was provided to him from our office and from our specialists and our staff was what really helped him get that grant. And so I just want everyone to know Dan from Prairie Pride had never written a grant before in his entire life. He had lots of questions. That's fine. He called us, we answered his questions, and he got the grant. So that was great. So, okay, next slide. Here's another one of our companies that we have helped back in FY06 and FY10 was Country Pumpkin. And I don't know if many of you know about Country Pumpkin. He's had many articles in the paper about his business, but the owner of Country Pumpkin started this as an FFA project when he was a senior in high school. And I actually think he even started before senior in high school. And he started growing pumpkins, and him and his sister would go out in the morning. They would pick the pumpkins. They would take them to a trailer on the side of the road and put a coffee can on the trailer and have people just pay for the pumpkins that they picked up. And so in high school, that kind of got him into this business. As he started to, after he graduated from high school and college, he really decided that he wanted to grow this business into more than just raising pumpkins. So the first time that he applied to us, he applied for the feasibility study. He wanted to look at what the opportunity was to actually process his pumpkins into pumpkin puree, and he sells that, and he wanted to sell it to restaurants and in grocery stores. So he used the first grant for a feasibility study, and he had a study done that looked at, what the opportunity was for him to sell this product. After he found out that there was actually there was a lot of people that were interested in a pure pumpkin puree, because if you look at canned pumpkins, a lot of times it's squash and it's not pumpkin. So he found this niche market for pure pumpkin. So the next time he applied for a grant in FY10, he used that to help him develop his marketing. His labels that he designed for his product, his distribution to get into grocery stores or into restaurants. He developed a website. He also attends a lot of farmers markets and bringing his product and distribution of that product down to Lincoln to attend the farmers markets. Those are all expenses that he could use and for the grant funds. So he is still in operation today. He now has set up a whole pumpkin patch on their farm, and he has been very, very successful in his area. I'm going to let Grant talk about Schwartz Farm as another applicant that applied last year.
So the first two slides of projects, or three slides, the first two were just working capital grants. The Country Pumpkin was a planning and a working capital. The Schwartz Family Farm is a planning grant. And it kind of can show the different types of projects that we see. But Schwartz Family Farms was for a feasibility study and marketing plan to develop an alternative revenue source, if you will, for their tomato seconds. And so they're looking within that feasibility study to see which is the most viable product to possibly create. So they were thinking possibly salsa or tomato sauce, and just to see what they can do with the tomatoes that just aren't pretty enough to sell at the farmer's market or be on display. So basically it allows them an ability to take that excess waste and possibly utilize it for a product down the road. Their tomato seconds were primarily not being sold or could not be sold. And, even if they were, there was less than $1 a pound. So basically, if they were to take those tomatoes and then develop them into a salsa, then they could go ahead and sell the salsa at the price of more than what they may be able to even sell a normal tomato for. So take a wasted product and then create a new revenue source. So basically, we've kind of given you 4 different type of projects that we've had. Doesn't really quite answer the ins and outs of what they exactly did. We can kind of give you the broad overview, but when you really start talking about a project, and if we'll open up for questions here if anyone has any questions. But if you do decide to move forward with an application, we can kind of get into more details on everything that you can possibly do, and it's much more expansive than what most people would think. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, we'll open it up to questions if anyone has any.
And just as a reminder, the grant is due January 31st, so that may sound like close, which it is. But we think it's very definitely, you can definitely get the grant done by January 31st. So, okay. How do you want to open it for questions?
Yep, and so I am unmuting everyone. If you are on the computer, you can unmute yourself. But yeah, we will go ahead and open it up for questions. I did want to ask if you have any tips or tricks or anything that you see gets funded more often.
I'll let Brett go first.
Technically, no. I mean, I wouldn't say that there's any tips or tricks to get funded. If anyone is interested in applying, you can my contact information is there. You can give me a call or you can send me an email. But what we typically do is we'll send out the application package as well as what we call our scoring instructions. So when you look through the application, one of the sections is what we call the evaluation criteria, and that's actually how the applications are scored. And the scoring instructions go through what you need to include in each one of those sections to score the most or score the best. And so the tips I would say is, first off, is definitely, if you're interested, contact us and work with us through the process. As people from Grow might know, when we've worked with them in the past, we really are quite hands-on, maybe different than other agencies that you might apply with. So we definitely say submit any application to us early, and we'll review it, and we'll work through the application with you to kind of build up your application to help you as much as possible. So really, if there's any tips or tricks, if you will, is utilize our staff as much as possible to help you with your application.
And then the only other tip I would throw in there also is don't give up. Call us before you give up. I also just want to let people know that we have a specialist in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, Marla Marks. We have a specialist in Kearney, Kelly Messenger, and we have a specialist in Norfolk, Bill Shepard and Daniel Yankee. And then Brant here in the office is our main VAPG person in the state office in Lincoln. So we have lots of people to get you in contact with, and every one of our staff is great at helping people out. So.
And we are so thankful that you're so hands-on. You guys do an awesome job.
Thanks.
Going off of that, is there, I mean, the application deadline is January 31st, but obviously we don't want people waiting to the last minute if they need to apply and they need to work with you. When
Right.
would you say is the deadline for contacting you and still being able to get an application in?
the sooner the better if you're really looking to start. That way we can kind of possibly talk just briefly over what project or what you might be looking to do to maybe start pushing you in the right direction off the front. One thing about the application is that it looks a lot worse than what it is, because we went through all the different type of applicants there are, or the methodologies and the different types of applications. It looks like a lot of paperwork, and it is a lot of paperwork, but most of it is just check boxes and things along those lines. So we can review an application or portions of the application as it's completed. We can do it all at once. We can do portions here or there. It doesn't really matter to us. Once we really start reviewing these, to be honest, it doesn't take us a lot of time to do it. But we would say if we're getting down to the last week and we haven't looked at it yet, we'd probably say that you'd want to get it into us as soon as possible that last week, so we can maybe get looked at, and if we have any suggestions, we can give it to you so you can maybe make those changes and resubmit. But if someone was to contact us today or even on Monday, and we got you the application, that week before, the 22nd to the 26th, probably would be a good week to try to have it to us so we can look through it.
And we can do lots to help you out. We can, what we're here to do is help you maximize those points and all the scores so that you can get maximum number of points for your application. We do expect to be more consistent this year, since we're looking at possibly having 18 million. Maybe there's going to be more. We don't know that for a fact. So every time you leave points on the table that could be easy points for you to get, you jeopardize your opportunity to get the grant. So that's what we want to do. We want to look through that and make sure that we can help you maximize those points. I will tell you, if you send it to us on the 31st and ask us to review it, we can't do that. So even if you send it to us on the 30th,
we can review it. It just wouldn't be guaranteed that you'd be able to get it back to us in time for us to.
Exactly. So we don't want to wait that late. If possible, we want to have some time to work with you and like I said, maximize those points. So.
Got it. Anybody else on the line have questions? So, and again, if you are on the computer, you will need to unmute yourself.
This is Sierra Forrest with Simply Sunflower, and I have two quick questions.
Okay.
One, I was wondering, can we possibly see that value-added methodology slide one more time? I was trying to type all of those really quick, but that's really helpful. I'm going to take a quick screenshot of that so I can review it.
Okay.
But also, I was wondering, are there any special stipulations with things to follow up on, or I don't know, any specific things with an income that your business needs to be making for you to be eligible?
No, there's not.
No.
Okay.
This is actually one of the few programs that we have that we're not really collecting financials or any of that information from the applicant. During the application process, you will put some, again, going back to that evaluation criteria, you'll put some benchmarks that you hope to achieve, whether it's increasing your customer base or increasing your revenues by a certain amount. And through the grant period, there's sporadic reporting twice a year, and that you'll kind of update us on if you're meeting those goals, if you're funded. So that's really the only thing I would say, if anything. And now, if you don't meet what you are saying, it's not necessarily going to take the grant away, but it gives you an opportunity when you're thinking through your project of how you can change what you're doing. Or if you were to say, and this is one thing we didn't say, of course, you saw a few with the planning grant that went to a working capital. You can apply for more than one working capital over as many years as possible. So it's not like it's one and done. So if you were to apply again, and let's say that your project was unsuccessful based off your benchmarks, you'll tell us kind of why that was, but it doesn't eliminate your ability to apply again. It just might help you learn from those mistakes.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's really helpful. Thank you.
And did you have any questions about those methodologies at all? I mean, basically the one we use most in Nebraska is that locally produced ag food products.
Okay.
Sierra's,
Thanks.
the business that Sierra works for produces sunflower seed oil.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that that's sort of where we would be under as well.
You could either be the locally produced product or the change in physical state. The program just requires you to select one of the methodologies that fall within those. You may actually do multiple. I mean, you could be doing a change in physical state, an organic product, and be selling it locally. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to explain all three. You just have to select one of the five.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then we did have a question submitted beforehand. We have an Economic Development Alliance that is looking for information on how to fill out this grant for one of their members. Are there any regulations on that, or?
No, you can use, I mean, is he or she talking about being a grant writer for someone?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. People can use grant writers.
Yep.
You know, we just ask, because we are always dealing with PII, that if you're using a grant writer, just send us a note and saying, yes, you can talk to my grant writer about my application, so that we can discuss the application with the grant writer.
And we also suggest, even if you're using a grant writer, that the grant writer works with us as well.
Yeah.
I know there's several grant writers throughout the United States that work on this program. And again, if it's the first time you've ever written this grant, there can be some things that we can always assist on as well that way. So it's not required. You don't ever have to talk to us before the application, but we just always suggest that give us a chance to review it one time at least, just to make sure that there's no eligibility questions or things that may cause it to get kicked out early on.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm checking here. I think we had one other question submitted beforehand. But does anybody else have questions? So, well, Joanne and Brant, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at this. I know Tammy was hoping to hop on here, but we'll send her the recording as well. Now, she makes the jewelry out of corn.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure
Yeah.
if you had done any research on whether that would be eligible or not.
We talked about it, and we really need to probably take that one to our national office. She has to be growing the corn, and then she has to be adding value to it, of which
Obviously, yeah, if you're making
changing the physical state. She's changing the physical state from corn to jewelry, so that would work. So, but yeah, if she is interested, have her give us a call, and we can actually talk about what she's doing, and then look at to see about the eligibility. From first, my gut reaction is it should be eligible.
That would be my gut reaction too. I mean, we have, I mean, not necessarily we've done these projects in the state, but if you have sheep and you're doing wool and you're making yarn, and it's not just, it doesn't have to just be a food byproduct that comes out of the program. So my thought process with, if you're growing the corn and you're doing something that adds value to it, and you're selling a product, that to me seems like it would fit the program. But we would probably have to follow up the national office just to be 100% sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And one thing, I guess I don't know if we necessarily touched on this. everything that is eligible in this program has to be past the production process. So
yeah.
if it's produce, fruits, or anything along those lines, once it's picked or taken to the processing, wherever it's going to be washed, once it starts to be washed, that's when the value-added process starts. For a meat type project, as soon as it's dropped off at the processor or the slaughter, if you will, for slaughter, that's when the processing starts. And that's when we can actually start a value-added project. So from that very front end of the processing all the way to the point where it's sold to the customer, whether that's even through distribution, that's where we end. So anything along that continuum, if it happens to be to create that value-added product, it can be an eligible part of the project. So it's, when we say that the program itself is really open-ended, and you can really start thinking outside of the box of what you might want to do with the grant itself. So if you have a high-cost type of value-added production through utilities, you can cover those utility costs. If you are creating, if you're creating sauces or anything that you might need a commercial kitchen for, you can't necessarily create your commercial kitchen, but you can go rent that space for that commercial kitchen.
Or have someone else make that product for you, and
Correct.
then we could pay that grant to be used for the co-packing. Yeah.
So it's wide open. And then once you get past that initial just production of the product itself, like I said, it can allow you to go to trade shows. It can help you design a website. If you want to, if you don't have a label or you want to create labels or brand your product, it can do that. So there's a lot of avenues to go with the program itself. If you are, let's just say you're selling out of your home or farmers markets or anything like that, and you want an actual retail location, again, you can't purchase the retail location, but can help pay for the rent for that location. So there's a lot more to this program than just helping with marketing costs. It's quite wide open, and really, when you talk to us what you're looking to do, we can kind of discuss those eligible costs at that point in time.
And what we basically say is what it cannot cover is any production costs. So I can't cover the seeds that it takes to grow your product. I can't pay for the irrigation. I can't pay for the fertilizer. We can't do that. But we can't pay for bricks and mortar. So no buildings, no equipment, no major equipment. But pretty much everything else that has to do with that processing that product we can pay for.
Yeah, and another thing, let's say when you look at what you're doing, let's say that, for instance, you have a dairy and you have milk, and you want to make ice cream or something along those lines, but you need the flavoring components. The flavoring or those ingredients that you put to make that final product is also an eligible cost. So it's much more extensive than one would actually think just on the surface.
So I hope you can tell we're kind of passionate about this program. We like it. We like working with people. We like trying to get these dollars in Nebraska. We think it's a great program. So I hope if you're interested, give us a call.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll open it up one more time. Any additional questions? And I'm sure if everybody is like me, they'll probably think of them after the training and have to contact you then.
Notice I give you Brant's phone number and email. He's much better at getting back to you. But we do have those two phone numbers, or Brant's number up there and his email address. Drop him an email, give him a call. We'll help you out.
And I will.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I will include your information, Brant, then in our follow-up email to all the participants.
And you can put my phone number on there too, Heidi.
Perfect. Will do.
402-437-5594.
And I'm an early person, so I get in here early, which means I also leave a little bit earlier than most. So if it's any time after 3, you can email me, or you can call Joanne.
Yeah. Yeah,
Perfect.
Brant's my 6 o'clock in the morning person, so. For all those who are up at 6, call Brant.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joanne and Brant. This was lots of great information. So we will be sending out this follow-up information to everybody else on the call. If you enjoy trainings like these, we are going to be doing them once a month. We're going to call them our First Friday Chats. And then we also have our Third Thursday trainings, our T3s. So our T3 this month is actually going to be on licensing your products. If you want to have a Husker product, we are bringing in Lana Henricks from UNL Athletics and Marketing. So you can register for that on grownebraska.org. And I hope the rest of you have an absolutely amazing day. So thank you again, Joanna Grant.
Thank you, Heidi, and thanks for organizing this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.